Hello and welcome to Non-Toxic Nerd, home of movies, TV, comics, and games. Today we're looking at episode 4 of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, The Whole World is Watching. As always, this video will be spoiler heavy, so if you haven't already, go watch it and come back. If you've already seen it or you just don't care, then let's get started. We open in Wakanda, 6 years before the series, to Bucky's rehabilitation. Ayo and Bucky are sitting by a fire, and Ayo starts saying the Winter Soldier code words. Bucky doesn't think this is a good idea, but she says that it's time. It looks like they're going to try to see if he will respond. So we watch as she says the code words. Bucky's fighting off the brainwashing. We hear the Winter Soldier theme play at first, but then the soundtrack kind of lightens into something a little more hopeful as we see him tearfully accept that he is free as Ayo tells him that he's free. I really love this scene. It was beautifully acted. The tearful relief in Bucky's face and Ayo just looking like a proud mother whose son just did something great. In such a small amount of time, they were able to show a deep connection between Bucky and Ayo, which will come up later in this episode. We then cut back to Riga, where Ayo confronts Bucky in an alley where we left them off at the end of last episode. A little exposition from Ayo shows why Wakanda hates Zemo. Of course, he murdered King T'Chaka, and the Dora Milaje see this as their great shame, as they could not protect the king. Ayo is very disappointed in Bucky for releasing Zemo and gives him 8 hours before they come for Zemo. We then see Bucky hand over the Kimoyo beads that he found at the end of last episode, and we cut to the title card. So something about the soundtrack on the title card, like a sad sounding whining violin, told me that this is going to be a far more serious and darker episode that we've seen, and we're going to see that a lot later on this episode. Bucky then returns to Zemo's Riga apartment, where he informs Sam and Zemo that the Wakandans are here and they want Zemo. They then find out that Carly has bombed the GRC depot from last episode. Sam and Zemo argue over whether Carly can or can't be saved. Zemo says that being a super soldier is a supremacist attitude, which is kind of a good point. Kind of the pursuit of power and the want to be a super soldier is kind of a supremacy in itself. Basically, that great power can warp aspirations, which is what led to the Nazis, to Ultron, and the Avengers. Kind of showing that Zemo believes that superpowered people or people with power can't be trusted. The only exception, as pointed out by Bucky, was Steve Rogers, and Zemo concedes this point but counters that there never has been a Steve Rogers since then. Bucky's had enough of this and suggests handing Zemo over to the Wakandans then. Sam changes the subject to Danya Madani, the kind of mother figure of the Flag Smashers that was found dead last episode. And he said that there could be a funeral or some sort of remembrance somewhere close. Zemo seems to agree, and he offers a Turkish delight to Sam, a kind of little candy, saying that they're irresistible. He's going to use these a little later in the episode. That's the only reason I'm mentioning it now. We then cut to some Flag Smashers listening to a broadcast covering the bombed GRC depot. The broadcast mentions that one of the workers there had 2 kids and had only been on the job for a week. So despite her assertion that all these people are just fighting against her and their cause, there's a lot of innocents that are getting in the way, and she's having to rectify that with her mission. But the broadcast also says that the bombing did bring attention and support to the Flag Smashers. So back with our trio, they arrive in what appears to be a GRC refuge. Sam and Bucky begin asking about Danya, but nobody wants to talk. A teacher explains to Sam that they are not refugees, they're just displaced people, and they don't trust outsiders. He also expresses distrust in the GRC. They were supposed to send supplies and teachers, a lot of stuff to help them, but he says it's been 6 months since then. We then see Zemo approach a group of kids who are playing. He dumps out a bag of Turkish Delight, and he gets info about the memorial for Danya out of the kids, but he tells them not to say anything to Sam and Bucky. Back at the apartment, Sam explains how it's hard to find Carly because of her support. Nobody's willing to talk because they believe Carly is helping them, and kind of how the world came together to deal with the aftermath of Thanos' snap. Borders fell, jobs were offered to whoever needed work, and then when everything snapped back to normal, all these people became displaced. They're just kind of pushed out of wherever they had found stability. Bucky says if Carly's ends justify her means, then she's no different than Zemo. And Sam responds that Carly has different motivations than Zemo did. While Zemo offers tea, Bucky asks what info he got from the kids. He divulges that he knows when the funeral is going to be, but he wants to keep his leverage to prevent being handed over to Wakanda. Bucky gets up kind of calmly and then kind of snatches Zemo's teacup and smashes it, gets all in his face and threatens him. Sam has to intervene to keep Bucky from playing into Zemo's hand. We do see that even though Bucky did see Zemo as their best lead, he still despises him, and Zemo does show a little bit of fear of Bucky. He's pretty scared after a super soldier gets in his face. Sam then calls Sharon for info on the Flag Smashers camp. She agrees to help him and tells him that the power broker is furious over the murder of Dr. Nagel and Madripoor is about to explode. So maybe that's something we'll see in the next episode. We then see Carly at a grave site where she's hidden the remaining serum supplies. She starts to question if she's doing the right thing, and her companion assures her that if she's feeling scared, then she's probably doing the right thing. I guess that works in some situations, but I'm not sure if that's a good barometer for if you're doing right or wrong. They discuss Cap and how he was a good man and how things aren't as, they're not about good and evil, and there's a lot of gray in these new times. Carly displays similar feelings on the shield to Sam, how its legacy is outdated, has historically excluded certain people, and it should be destroyed. We cut back to Riga, where Walker and Hoskins confront Bucky, Sam, and Zemo, and they go over a plan to apprehend Carly at the memorial. Walker wants to go in fast and hot, where Sam wants to talk to her. And Hoskins is able to convince Walker to go along for now, and they follow Zemo and his associate, quote-unquote, which is one of the kids he talked to earlier at the memorial. So Sam goes in, and Walker handcuffs Zemo, tells Sam he's got 10 minutes, then he'll do it his way. We then see the memorial service. As Carly is speaking, she can see Sam she starts to get anxious. I think this shows that even though she is enhanced and she is basically a super soldier, she still doesn't want to get into any physical altercations if she can avoid it. Outside, we see Walker getting anxious. It's kind of a back and forth, like camera cutting scene, but I think it's starting to show that Walker's really, they're building up Walker's insecurities and how anxious he is, and he knows he's not super powered, and he's not really, he's qualified to deal with these people, but he's not to their level of strength. He's just a guy. And on top of this, he's trying to be Captain America, so there's certain rules he has to follow. Sam waits for the crowd to pay their respects and leave, and he approaches Carly when she's alone. He lies right away and says that he came alone, even though we know there's a super soldier and 2 U.S. Army military assets outside. He tries to connect with Carly and says he understands her frustration. We then cut back to Walker. We see him getting more anxious. He tries to get by Buck, who stops him at the door. We're reminded again that Walker is not superpowered, and he kind of convinces Bucky that Sam's blood would be on his hands if Carly kills him. Back with Sam and Carly, Sam mentions how some people think she's a supremacist, and she's killing people to get her message across. She says they aren't people, they're just machines working against her, and she would kill them again, and then immediately tries to backtrack after she hears how awful that sounds. It kind of tells me that she doesn't want to be a hardline kind of person, but the serum is beginning to change her. She somehow knows about Sam and Sarah's situation back home and asks why Sam is trying to track her down instead of fighting the people trying to take his family home. Sam says he agrees with her message, just not her tactics. At this moment, Walker barges in and, she feels betrayed and runs. Bucky and Sam pursue her, and we see Zemo has uncuffed himself as soon as he was left alone. He intercepts Carly and shoots her in the side, which causes Carly to drop the serum sample she was carrying. Zemo sees these and starts smashing the vials of serum. This gives Carly time to escape, and then Zemo's knocked out by Walker. He throws the shield at his head. And Walker finds one last vial that hadn't been smashed, and he pockets this one as Sam, Buck, and Hoskins catch up to him. We then see Carly finding out that all the vials have been destroyed, and she regrets waiting so long to make more super soldiers, which was their plan. The Flag Smashers then get a message from the power broker saying that he will find her and he wants his samples. They realize they cannot fight 2 wars at the same time, and Carly devises a plan to avoid this. She wants to separate Sam from the group and then kill Walker. Back at Zemo's apartment, Zemo questions Sam about the serum, whether he was offered it or he would take it if he had the chance. Sam answers no to both those questions, and Zemo seems to like this and tells Sam that he can't save Carly and super soldiers cannot be allowed to exist. And Sam brings up Bucky and, what about him? And blood isn't always the solution. Basically, Sam's saying he doesn't want to kill anybody, which I think that makes him more Captain America than John Walker at this point, but we'll get into that later. Bucky then enters and he says he thinks something's off about Walker. He can spot crazy, and being a crazy person, he knows. He then reproaches Sam about giving up the shield again, and Sam says he didn't give Walker the shield, but Bucky responds that Steve sure didn't. So in giving up the shield, he basically gave it to Walker, or he allowed the U.S. government to choose who was going to get the shield. And we all know back in Captain America, the First Avenger, Dr. Erskine, who was running Project Rebirth, wanted a good man, not the perfect soldier. And of course, if you leave it up to the U.S. government, they're going to give it to the perfect soldier, which isn't always the best man. Walker and Hoskins storm in. They attempt to apprehend Zemo, and Sam kind of gets in his way, and as Walker tries to confront him, a metal spear shoots between them, and the Dora Milaje have come for Zemo. So a fight ensues. Buck and Sam wait to intervene as Walker and Hoskins kind of get their butts handed to them. And it's a really cool fight scene. You just see the Dora Milaje just kick the crap out of Walker and Hoskins. During this commotion, Zemo slips out. Bucky enters the fray, and Ao literally disarms him. She has some sort of method where she can disconnect his arm from his body. His metal arm, obviously. And Walker does not. This kind of de-escalates the fight. The Dora Milaje leave. Walker does not take the butt whooping well, and we see that Zemo escaped through a hatch in the floor of the washroom. After this, we see Walker and Hoskins recovering over a cup of coffee. Hoskins reassures Walker that it wasn't all bad, as the serum and the supplier of the serum have been eliminated. We then see some women come up and ask Walker for his autograph. Walker asks Hoskins if he would have taken the serum if he had the chance, and Hoskins says he would, and he wouldn't be afraid of the changes. He says that power only makes you more of what you are, and that's the difference between Steve Rogers and Carly. Walker then asks Hoskins what he thought about himself taking the serum, and Hoskins reassures him that he would trust him, as Walker has already proven himself to make the hard decisions, for his 3 medals of honor. Walker responds to this saying the only purpose of those medals was to remind him of the worst day of his life. Obviously, he got those medals for heroic actions in combat, which usually means it's been a pretty bad day. You don't want to be in combat if you're a soldier, so if you win medals for, courage in combat, you probably had a pretty bad day. Hoskins mentions how many lives they could have saved if they had had the serum, and Walker confirms that he's actually been thinking about that. So we're starting to see a turn in Walker about not being superpowered, maybe a little resentful of it, and a little bit of anger starting to build up. We then cut to Sarah in Louisiana and getting a call. Carly has found her, and Sarah says she knows who she is. Carly threatens Sam since he seems to be working for Walker, and Sarah says she didn't choose Walker to be Captain America, and Sam is not working for him. Carly needs to meet with Sam, and she needs Sarah to pass some info, like coordinates and contact info, along. She then threatens Sarah and mentions her 2 sons by name, so Sam knows that she's serious. Sarah, of course, immediately calls Sam and tells her what happened. He tells her to leave, get somewhere safe, and tells Bucky he needs to meet Carly alone. Bucky obviously doesn't let this happen, so they suit up to meet Carly. When they do meet, Carly says she would never hurt Sarah, but needed him to know that she was serious. She also says that she doesn't want to kill Sam either, and wants him to join her or let her go. So we're seeing a lot of conflict in Carly. She wants to do the right thing, but is finding it hard to toe that line, as the serum can give her anger more weight. It's starting to show that you kind of have to almost be pure of heart to keep yourself and not give in to the corruption of power. So Sharon has been watching via satellite feed and tells Sam that Walker is approaching. And a fight ensues. We see Walker and Hoskins storm the building the meeting is taking place in. They split up, and Hoskins is subdued by the Flag Smashers. Walker then goes to find him and runs into a Flag Smasher. The first kind of instance you'd realize something's off as he throws the shield with unusual strength, and it cracks the wall and sticks in it. Bucky pursues Carly, and Sam witnesses Walker exhibiting unusual strength as he takes down the Flag Smasher he was fighting. And then they run off to find Hoskins, and Bucky takes down another Flag Smasher and joins Sam and Walker. We then see Hoskins free himself, and Bucky, Sam, and Walker are fighting a bunch of Flag Smashers. Really cool fight scene. It's You don't see Walker take the serum, but it's pretty well implied that he has. He's kind of kicking butt now. The fight ends with Carly killing Hoskins. She just punches him really hard into a column, and he goes limp. Everyone clears out except for Walker, who goes over to check on Hoskins and confirms his death. This enrages Walker, and he jumps out a window in pursuit of one of the Flag Smashers. The soundtrack takes a real sinister turn, and Walker ends up beating down a Flag Smasher with the shield. It's basically a recreation of the scene from Civil War, where Steve beats down Tony Stark with the shield. But ultimately, he just disables the Iron Man suit instead of killing Tony, realizing what that would do to the legacy of the shield. Walker does not take this path, and he stands over the fallen Flag Smasher with a bloodied shield as the whole world is watching. Literally a crowd with cell phone cameras taking videos and pictures of him. We then go to the credits. It's a much darker and somber tone of soundtrack as we, the viewers, at least me, was left to ponder like what the crap we just saw. Captain America just beat a man to death. That image with the shield, the bloody shield, is just, it's poignant. This was an intense episode. This took a darker turn for the series, and we seem to be building up to a showdown between any number of these characters. Walker now has a bloodlust for Carly after the death of Lamar Hoskins. Sam now has to worry about keeping his family safe and out of harm's way. Zemo has disappeared, and I'm sure the Dora Milaje are not happy about that. I'm sure that damaged Ao and Bucky's relationship even further. And like I said, just the sight of Captain America's blood-soaked shield is shocking. And what does this mean for John Walker as Captain America? A whole crowd just recorded Captain America operating in a foreign sovereignty and murder a revolutionary, part of a group that has already been gaining public support. So is this the turn into U.S. agent? Is he going to get the Captain America title stripped from him? Is Sam going to become Captain America? We got 2 more episodes, and we're starting to get a little crazy. So the longer this series continues, the more we enter a gray area. I personally can't support the Flag Smashers through their actions, but I understand the support they receive from the displaced people they represent. And John Walker just confirmed that very few can be trusted with the serum, and the legacy of Captain America has been soiled forever. So there are some great action fight scenes in this episode. The hits felt real, and we continue to see the instability of Walker as he seems to have given up on being a good Captain America and is just a man fed up with people disrespecting him. Who will track down Zemo first, if at all? And will Sam and Bucky be able to contain all the craziness around them? With 2 episodes left, I'm more intrigued than ever to see how this story concludes. As I mentioned, we have a lot of questions to be answered and conflicts to be resolved. It feels like the stakes keep ramping up with every episode, so tune in next week for the episode 5 breakdown. That's it for today's video. Please like, share, and subscribe. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all as Not Toxic Nerd. Special thanks to Brad for our music. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.